Hey guys, this is Bharadwaj with PhoneArena.com and this is the HTC One M8 that I have in my hands right now. You might have seen a lot of comparison videos comparing the HTC One's camera with other flagships and other brilliant camera phones. You might have formed a conclusion, but in this video, we are going to tell you how good the HTC One M8 camera is in our opinion. We are going to deliver our verdict because a lot of people have talked about the HTC One 8's camera. It's a duo camera setup as HTC calls it, and it's very intriguing. So we are going to tell you how it works and how it performs, and also show you a tour of the interface in our camera review of the HTC One M8. So let's start with the technical specifications of the HTC One M8's camera. This is the primary sensor and this is the secondary sensor. Let's talk about the primary one first. This is the same 4 megapixel ultra pixel sensor that you saw on the HTC One, but the difference is that it lacks OIS, so the optical image stabilization part is removed, and instead they are using software based stabilization, and the LED part is also changed. There are two LEDs. This is very similar to the setup on the iPhone 5s. One is warm and one is cool, so this produces natural skin tones in low light when you use the flash. So that's the primary camera, which is almost exactly the same as the original HTC One, and the ultra pixel's biggest advantage is that it can gather a lot of light because first it has a pixel size of 2 micrometers, and then you have a f2.0 lens which makes it very good for low light accordingly. So let's talk about the secondary sensor. The secondary sensor is of unknown megapixels and unknown size and all that, but the main function that it serves is a stereoscopic rangefinder. We talked about it in a lengthy blog post. You can find the blog post in the links below. It'll be in the description. It explains the duo camera and the use of a duo camera. So basically what it does is use two sensors to compute the overall depth of the photo. So what you see is actually a 3D camera. Using two eyes, you can easily perceive the depth, and exactly what this does is use a stereoscopic rangefinder, which is World War time technology, to find out the distance between all the objects in the scene. That's what it does. So it saves the depth map inside the same photo. So if you take a photo, it saves the depth map for the photo, and you can manipulate that depth using software to create interesting effects. And that we will see in the interface, which we'll see here. So that's the basic redesign of the interface. It was already a good interface from the HTC One X times, but HTC has cleaned up a lot, and we definitely like it compared to the other interfaces in the other phones in the market. So this is the HTC One M8's interface. Album, the shortcut for the shutter, and this is the modes button, and then you have all the other extra settings. So this modes will take you to a set of 6 modes. So you have camera, you have video, you have the Zoe camera, which is the same as the HTC One. It takes a package which has multiple burst shots, it's a video and a burst shot and all that. It's very useful for people who like it. And then there is a selfie mode, which is obviously the front facing camera. HTC is catching up with the times. It's just naming the front facing camera mode the selfie. And there is the dual capture, which uses the back camera as well as the front camera to capture two different parts of the picture on the same image, which happens on the Galaxy S4, which was introduced on the Galaxy S4. And then there is the Pan 360, which is Google's implementation that we are seeing in all the cameras. So now at the options menu, you can see that there are a lot of options. Auto will show you all the modes. Unfortunately, all of them are not named, so you have to take note of them, or you'll get used to them. So let's go through all the modes one by one. So this is the actual mode switcher. You have auto, you have night mode, you have HDR, and this is sweep panorama. You have anti-shake. You have a very interesting implementation here, manual mode, which HTC takes inspiration from Nokia's camera. You can change the focus manually, as I will show you here. You can change the focus manually, as you can see. You can change the shutter speed up to 4 seconds. You can change the ISO and of course the exposure compensation. This is very useful for people who want to take light trails and also change the focus. And there is the portrait mode, we have the landscape, and then the backlight mode, and then you have text, which is used for scanning documents, and then you have macro. So these are all the modes, and mostly auto mode works well for most of you. So it's not going to be very complicated, but if you're willing to use the manual mode, it works really great. And then you have ISO. ISO is up to 1600. You have the exposure compensation, and you have the auto white balance. This is effects, which is a bit gimmicky, and then you have more settings. These settings are for a lot of things. The makeup level is for the selfie camera. You have the image adjustments, you have the crop. This is a 16:9 sensor. It takes 16:9 photos by default. We have moved on to times where 16:9 is default, and then you also have crop, geotag photos, review duration, and all that. These are normal options that you can see in most of the cameras. So that's the user interface tour of the HTC One M8, which is pretty good if you ask us. So let's talk about the camera performance. Has it increased? Has it improved from its predecessor? Well, we took the camera for a spin in several conditions, and you can see the camera samples to find out for yourself. Let's start with the daylight conditions where we use the HTC One M8. These are some of the daylight samples that we took. So as you saw from the daylight samples, the improvement is not really so different or so advanced. It is almost the same as the HTC One M7 in terms of overall details and overall clarity, and that is a bit underwhelming for us because we expected HTC to do something with the ultra pixel sensor because the algorithms were a bit screwed up, and we expected HTC to deliver a better camera experience in terms of performance. But unfortunately, we are sad to report that the HTC One M8's ultra pixel camera takes almost exactly the same pictures as the HTC One M7. There is not much difference in terms of picture quality, details, and all that. So that's the daylight part, and that's the overall conclusion we have taken from all the photos. So that's the way it works. So moving on to the other stuff, HDR mode is pretty good. Here are some a couple of HDR samples with and without HDR. You can see that the HDR mode is definitely much better, but it does take a little bit of time to capture that photo. It takes 3 different exposures and merges the photo. So that's how it works. It's pretty good, and even macro is excellent, just like we had expected. Macro shots are excellent. So here are the samples. But again, we can see that the photos have a little bit of over sharpening, edge sharpening, and overall the photo looks sharp. It is not natural. It is not what we see. It's a bit sharp. So that's one problem that we noted with the HTC One M7, and that's the same in the HTC One M8. So that's the macro samples that you saw right now. And then moving on to low light, again, as you would expect, it's very much same as the HTC One M7. There is not much to say here. Here are the low light samples, and you can see and decide for yourself. Now that's the still camera performance. But the thing is that there are 2 camera sensors here. So how does it really work in terms of, taking photos and doing an edit on that? So this is a very normal photo, and if you want to edit it, hit the edit button, do effects, and you can see that there are 2 things here: U focus and U-focus and there is the foregrounder. So what U-focus does is use the depth map to create a blurred photo. So the foreground will be blurred, or you can choose the background too to be blurred, and that's how that works. We have got several samples here and we would like to show you some. So let's see how the effect works on this photo. So this with U-focus on, you can see that the foreground is in focus and the background is completely blurred. This provides a nice miniaturization effect that you would want from a blurred photo. As you can see, it pretty much knows how far the other parts of the photo are. And you can also try to focus on the foreground and make the background, the background and make the foreground out of focus, which is pretty cool. And this provides a really nice software-based bokeh, and we definitely like HTC's implementation here. This is more reliable than the Google camera lens blur that is done using very similar methods, but with a very small manual adjustment. So that's how the effect works, and you can also do that with foregrounder, which is exactly the same thing, but it applies effects to the foreground and the background. So that's how it works. You can have different effects. So the foreground is in color, the background is not, and then you have a blur effect, you have the colorize effect that happens to the background, and then this is something like that. And then you can of course change these using the depth map and all that. So that's how it works. That's the exact use of the duo camera, and HTC has done very well here. This works very well when you use it right, but it also fails at some point because it's software induced, and obviously you can expect some flaws with it. So that's how the key features of the duo camera work. And HTC is opening up its API to developers to take advantage of the two sensors. So we are hoping that developers produce more good stuff with this. So that's the duo camera. It is definitely a good implementation, and we hope that it improves over the course of time. Now moving on to video. Video is something we definitely love taking on phones because there are a lot of options. So going into video, you can see that there are several options here. The normal video mode is one. The slow motion video mode is 720p 120 fps converted to 30 fps, and there is fast full HD, which is 60 fps of 1080p video, and there is also the video HDR, which is a bit scruffy around the edges if you ask us, because it works kind of like a beta product. So that's how it works. So let's start with some video samples. Here's a normal 1080p video sample taken from the HTC One M8. So this is a pretty normal scene here, slightly leaning towards the evening in Chennai. So you can see the color reproduction and even the dynamic range when I turn towards the sun. You can see the dynamic range of both these devices' cameras. And of course you can also have an overview of the audio here in the recording. As you saw, the video is not spectacularly good, but it is pretty good in terms of color reproduction and contrast and all that. Details are pretty good, but slightly over sharpened. But then we also tried out the 720p slow motion, which was surprisingly very good on the HTC One M8. So take a look at that. Now there is a problem here, which is overblown highlights. That is mainly because of the 2-micron pixel size. So the pixel size is so huge that there is a lot of light coming in while taking 720p video, which is very low resolution for this huge sensor. So yeah, that's the 1/3 inch sensor's effect on the 720p 120 fps video. But we found that among the Android phones, apart from the iPhone 5s, the HTC One takes the best slow motion videos. So if you're looking to use slow motion videos, then the HTC One M8 is the next best option, apart from the iPhone 5s, which is definitely much better than the HTC One M8. So there you go. That's the overall look at the HTC One M8's camera. What's our verdict? Well, we have to say we are kind of underwhelmed by the HTC One M8's camera because it's the same ultra pixel unit that they have used, and not much advantage in terms of color reproduction, in terms of details and all that. We thought it would improve with the HTC One M8, but it hasn't. So HTC could actually work by bettering the sensor and the algorithms. Maybe they can make a bigger sensor, 1 by 2.3 inch type with higher megapixels, but the same 2 micron pixels. That would be much better than this. But still, this is a good enough camera if you are just into social media sharing and not creating posters. Most people are wanting to do that with phone cameras these days, and you can see the other camera reviews that we have. They have really good cameras, especially the Galaxy S5. It's brilliant. But the HTC One M8 stands out with its duo camera feature, which has really good potential. The depth map can be used for a lot of purposes, and we hope that HTC improves it for, even the developers. We hope they start working on it. One thing we didn't show you that, which is actually a very minor implementation, but we would still like to show you with the same example. So let's see. Yeah, this is the same example that we showed you. So here is another effect that we didn't show you. That's the 3 dimensions plus and seasons. Well, it's lame, but this 3-dimensional effect actually uses the depth map to simulate a 3D scene. It's slightly a parallax view that you get. You can't see it on the camera much. You have to see it in person because this is something really good. This is done through software and with the depth map that HTC's got. So anyway, that's the 3-dimension plus mode. And then of course there is also the seasons, which is just a gimmicky mode that, just snow, maple leaf, all that falls on the photo, which is pretty gimmicky. Anyway, that's the overall look at the HTC One's camera. We told you the verdict. The duo camera is impressive, the implementation could be a lot better, and we hope that HTC, at least with its next flagship, tries to improve the sensor here, because that's the only bottleneck that we see. So anyway, that's it guys, that's it for the camera review of the HTC One. Do let us know what you think in the comment section below. We would love to hear your feedback on the HTC One M8 and our verdict on it. Also, do hit the like button if you like this video, and do hit the subscribe button. You can check out the full resolution samples in the links below. You can check out the description. Don't forget to check them out. So that's about it. Thanks for watching. And again, let us know what you think in the comment section below.